Imagine this situation. You're having your breakfast in Tokyo, one of the busiest cities on the planet. It's exactly 8 a.m. on a regular Tuesday morning. 6 minutes later, the entire metro area could be on fire. Yeah, you heard that right. 6 minutes. That's how long it would take a projectile from North Korea to cross the Sea of Japan and hit the Japanese capital. Stretch that timer to 15 minutes, and weapons from China and Russia could turn the whole Japanese archipelago into a field of rubble. For decades, this was the reality haunting the Japanese people. An island nation, technologically advanced but militarily vulnerable, surrounded by powers that don't hesitate to show off their strength. But that story is changing drastically. Japan just unveiled a weapon that promises to completely flip the geopolitical game in the Pacific. What's this weapon? And does this mean Japan will drop its long-standing peace policy? To fully get what's going on, we need to go back in time. Since the end of World War II, Japan has lived under a pacifist constitution that banned the country from maintaining offensive armed forces. For almost 80 years, the Japanese relied on American protection while focusing on rebuilding their economy and becoming a tech powerhouse. But the world changed. China emerged as a military superpower, developing increasingly sophisticated arsenals. North Korea turned into a regional nuclear threat, testing nuclear devices like they were fireworks. Russia remains an aggressive force, contesting territories and showing power. And all these nations are literally just minutes away from Japanese territory. The turning point came in 2022, when Tokyo adopted a new national security strategy. For the first time since the post-war era, Japan officially authorized the development of preemptive strike weapons. Just defending wasn't enough anymore. It was time to be able to fight back. The official name is intimidating: HVP, Hypervelocity Gliding Projectile. But military experts have already nicknamed it the Ghost of the Skies, or the Impossible-to-Intercept Bullet. And when you understand the system's capabilities, you'll see why those nicknames totally fit. First, speed. The HVGP flies at over Mach 5, meaning 5 times the speed of sound. To put that into perspective, that's more than 6,000 kilometers per hour. A projectile launched from Tokyo could reach Beijing in under 20 minutes. But speed is only half the story. The real revolution lies in maneuverability. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow a predictable path, the HVP can perform unpredictable maneuvers mid-flight. It can change direction, speed up, slow down, climb, and dive through the atmosphere, making it nearly impossible for air defense systems to guess where it'll be the next second. But how exactly does this tech work? The HVP uses a revolutionary concept known as a hypersonic gliding vehicle, or HGV. The system is launched with a solid rocket booster, with the projectile separating at high altitude and then gliding at hypersonic speeds until impact. It's like a super smart stone being thrown from space, but with the ability to navigate and adjust its path while descending. The Block 2 version of the HVP, now in development, will incorporate even more advanced technology called Wave Rider. This Wave Rider tech will significantly improve gliding performance, letting the missile literally surf on shockwaves created by its own extreme speed. It's like it's riding the waves of compressed air in front of it. For even more advanced systems, the tech moves to scramjet engines, short for supersonic combustion ramjet. Scramjets are designed to operate in hypersonic flight regimes beyond what turbojet engines can handle, bridging the gap between turbojet's efficiency and rocket engine's speed. The difference is scramjets work more efficiently at hypersonic speeds and can withstand much higher temperatures and pressures by letting airflow pass at supersonic speeds, only slowing it slightly for combustion. The thermal challenge is huge. When traveling at high speeds, the intense heat can damage and even melt metal parts. To solve this, Japanese engineers developed advanced cooling systems that use the fuel itself as a coolant, circulating it through the missile's walls before combustion. Imagine trying to hit a fly with a slingshot. Now imagine that fly is flying at 6,000 kilometers per hour and can change direction instantly. That's exactly what Chinese, Russian, and North Korean defense systems are facing now. HVP development wasn't just theoretical. Between August 2024 and January 2025, Japan carried out 4 decisive tests at U.S. military bases in California. Each test was more impressive than the last. The first showed basic hypersonic flight ability. The second tested atmospheric maneuvers. The third validated long-range accuracy. And the fourth, done in January 2025, was a full demonstration of all integrated capabilities. All tests were rated complete successes by American and Japanese military observers. More importantly, these tests weren't done in secret. Japan deliberately allowed limited images and data to be released, sending a clear message to its neighbors: we have this capability, and it works perfectly. The development timeline was also sped up. Originally planned to finish in 2026, the program was moved forward due to rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific. Japan started mass production as early as 2023, even while the system was still being developed. That shows just how urgent the situation became. The first version of the HVGP, called Block 1, has a range between 500 and 1,000 kilometers. That means missiles launched from Japanese territory can hit targets in North Korea, China's east coast, and Russian military facilities on disputed islands. But the Block 2 version, in development, promises a reach of up to 3,000 kilometers, putting almost all eastern China and a large part of Asian Russia within range. To put this revolution in context, Japan's previous coastal defense systems had a max range of 200 kilometers. The HVGP multiplies that by 5 in its basic version and by 15 in the advanced one. It's like Japan went from a sword to a long-range sniper rifle. The country is also diversifying its arsenal. Besides the HVGP, Japan is acquiring American Tomahawk missiles with a 1,600-kilometer range and Norwegian NSM systems with 480 kilometers. This combo creates multiple layers of offensive capability, something unthinkable just a few years ago. The international response to Japan's hypersonic program was immediate and telling. China was the first to express deep concern over what it called Japan's aggressive militarization. China's Ministry of Defense issued an official statement accusing Japan of violating its pacifist constitution and destabilizing regional security. But China's words contrast with its actions. Beijing dramatically accelerated its own hypersonic programs, including developing the DFZF, a system similar to Japan's. China also stepped up military patrols around the disputed Senkaku Islands, clearly showing it doesn't plan to back down. North Korea responded in the way we know well, with provocations. In March 2025, Pyongyang tested 2 new medium-range missiles, claiming they were a necessary defensive response to Japanese threats. Russia kept a more reserved public stance, but intelligence sources say Moscow is supplying additional hypersonic technology to China and North Korea. No part of Japan's hypersonic program would be possible without decisive U.S. backing. In March 2025, the U.S. State Department approved a $200 million deal to directly support HVGP development. This aid isn't just financial, but includes technology, expertise, and access to American test facilities. The Washington-Tokyo partnership has been called a new golden era of military cooperation by analysts. President Donald Trump, meeting Japan's Prime Minister in February 2025, said, "Japan is our most important partner in the Pacific, and we'll make sure they have every tool they need to defend themselves." This cooperation goes beyond HVGP. The U.S. is sharing hypersonic detection tech, command and control systems, and even real-time intelligence data. It's an unprecedented military integration since the end of World War II. Traditionally, the Japanese people have been skeptical about rearmament. Decades of pacifist education created a culture averse to weapons and militarization. But recent surveys show a shift in public opinion. More than 90% of Japanese distrust China's intentions, and 61% believe a Taiwan invasion is likely or very likely in the coming years. The fear is real and tangible. Japanese families are buying emergency kits, and the government is building public shelters for the first time since the 1960s. This mindset change explains why the hypersonic program has massive public support. Unlike previous generations, today's Japanese see the HVGP not as an aggression tool, but as a national survival tool. From a military viewpoint, the HVGP gives Japan capabilities that totally change the regional dynamic. First, it creates what strategists call deterrence through uncertainty. Potential aggressors now have to calculate not just if they can attack Japan, but if they can survive Japan's response. Second, the system enables preemptive strikes on enemy launch facilities. If the Japanese detect attack preparations, they can neutralize the threat before it happens. This completely flips the previous dynamic where Japan was always on the defense. Third, the HVGP can hit moving naval targets, including aircraft carriers and submarines. China spent decades building a deep-water navy, but now has to consider that its most valuable ships are vulnerable to Japanese hypersonic strikes. But it's not all benefits. Developing the HVGP could have dangerous consequences we don't fully understand yet. The first is accelerating the regional arms race. If Japan has hypersonic missiles, China will want more. If China has more, North Korea will want some too. And so on. This dynamic could lead to situations where small incidents escalate into devastating regional conflicts. With hypersonic missiles, the time between detection and impact is so short that critical decisions might need to be made in seconds, not minutes or hours. There's also the risk of accidents. Hypersonic systems are super complex and operate at the edge of current tech. A technical failure during a test or exercise could be mistaken for a real attack, triggering an automatic military response. Japan's hypersonic missile represents more than just a weapon. It symbolizes the end of an era in Asian geopolitics. Post-war pacifist Japan is being replaced by a technologically advanced military power willing to use force when needed. This transformation forces all regional players to recalculate their strategies. China can no longer assume automatic military superiority. North Korea must consider that its threats might have immediate consequences. Russia must recognize that Japan now can hit Russian territory. For the US, Japan's HVGP is both an opportunity and a challenge. On one hand, it strengthens the alliance and reduces the American military burden in the region. On the other, it means Washington has less control over potential escalations since Japan can now act independently. In other words, what we're seeing emerge in the Pacific is a new regional order where multiple powers have instant destructive capabilities. That doesn't necessarily mean more conflicts, but definitely means any conflicts that happen will be much faster and more intense. Japan, historically a nation that suffered from weapons of mass destruction, has now become a power capable of inflicting devastating damage on its neighbors. It's a historical irony not lost on international observers. The question now isn't if other countries will develop similar systems, but how fast that will happen. Hypersonic technology is spreading, and Japan may have started a military revolution that will change the face of international security forever. Japan's hypersonic missile HVGP is more than a weapon. It's a symbol of how nations can be forced to abandon decades of pacifist policy when facing existential threats. It's a demonstration of how technology can rapidly shift regional power balances. And it's a reminder that in today's world, national security can no longer rely solely on alliances, but requires independent defense and deterrence capabilities. Japan sent a clear message to its neighbors: we're no longer just an economic and technological power. We're now a military force with immediate and devastating response capabilities. The question that remains is whether this new reality will bring more stability through deterrence or more instability through an arms race. One thing's for sure, the Pacific will never be the same. And the whole world is watching to see how this new dynamic unfolds in the coming years.